Maxwell Chikumbutso, the visionary engineer behind this breakthrough, claims his new RF battery can harvest energy directly from the air, from radio frequencies that already surround us every second of every day. The RF battery contains a series of microenergy converters that capture and convert radio frequency signals into usable electrical energy. In simple terms, it's like a solar panel, but instead of light, it harvests invisible waves from Wi-Fi, cell towers, and even Earth's natural electromagnetic field. No more lithium mining. No more toxic waste. Just clean, endless energy, everywhere, for everyone. Maxwell's team is reportedly testing multiple prototypes, from self-powered drones to electric vehicles running entirely on RF energy. As the lights of the city flickered across the horizon, the idea of infinite power no longer felt like a distant dream. It felt closer than ever. Engineers, researchers, and investors from across the globe began taking notice. Quiet discussions turned into active collaborations. Laboratories once skeptical started running simulations, trying to understand the depth of Maxwell's design. In universities, professors began using Maxwell's RF battery as a new case study in advanced energy courses. The concept of harvesting ambient radio frequencies inspired young innovators to think differently about energy, not as something to be stored, but as something constantly flowing around us, waiting to be captured. Meanwhile, Maxwell remained humble and focused. To him, this wasn't just about technology, it was about purpose. He spoke often about how this breakthrough could transform lives in remote regions of Africa, Asia, and South America, where access to reliable electricity remains a challenge. The idea of powering homes, schools, and hospitals using nothing more than ambient energy filled him with hope. As prototypes became more refined, small-scale tests began in local communities. The results were astonishing. Streetlights powered without wiring, communication towers that operated without generators, even small electric vehicles that could drive for days without needing to stop for a charge. Each success sparked new questions and new excitement. The global energy landscape began to shift in subtle but profound ways. Investors started reevaluating old models of power generation, while policymakers began imagining cities powered by invisible frequencies instead of fossil fuels. Slowly, the world began to see that this wasn't just an invention. It was the beginning of a transformation. Yet, amidst all the attention, Maxwell's team continued to refine the core principle of the RF battery: simplicity. The device was designed to last a lifetime, requiring no maintenance, no complex infrastructure, and no dependency on unstable energy markets. It was a vision of true independence, not just for machines, but for humanity. As evening fell in Maxwell's workshop, he stood by a table surrounded by quiet hums of equipment. His small RF-powered light continued to shine steadily, bright and unwavering, a silent symbol of what could soon illuminate the entire world. To him, this light wasn't just a demonstration. It was a promise that power could be free, clean, and infinite for generations to come. The journey, however, was far from over. Larger-scale testing was already underway, with partnerships forming across continents. Space agencies expressed interest in adapting RF batteries for satellites and exploration modules, while electric vehicle manufacturers began envisioning cars that could travel across countries without a single charge station. The boundaries of imagination were expanding with every passing day. And though challenges lay ahead in verification, scalability, and adoption, the sense of momentum was undeniable. Something extraordinary had begun, a quiet shift that could redefine the way humanity interacts with energy itself. News of Maxwell's remarkable creation continued to ripple across the world, reaching every corner of the technology and energy industries. From small towns to global capitals, conversations began to shift. People who had never thought deeply about energy suddenly found themselves fascinated by this quiet revolution that promised to change everything. In major research centers, scientists began setting up their own experiments to test the idea of ambient energy harvesting. Some found early signs that Maxwell's concept held real potential, while others wanted to understand how his system managed to maintain continuous power flow without losing efficiency. The excitement wasn't about competition. It was about discovery. Humanity had stumbled upon something that felt new, clean, and full of promise. Governments, too, began taking interest. Several countries reached out to Maxwell's team, hoping to explore the possibility of introducing RF energy systems into their infrastructure projects. The idea of creating self-sustaining villages and cities that no longer depended on fuel imports was deeply appealing. For the first time in decades, many nations began to see a path toward true energy independence. Maxwell, though surrounded by attention, remained calm and focused. His days were spent improving efficiency, designing smaller models, and mentoring young engineers who wanted to be part of this new chapter in science. He often said that the real power of invention was not in creating something new, but in inspiring others to believe that change was possible. As time passed, Maxwell's workshop became a place of learning and exchange. Students, scientists, and thinkers from different countries visited to see the RF battery in action. What struck them most was not just the technology itself, but the simplicity behind it. A small device, no larger than a book, quietly generating continuous energy without a single moving part. It felt almost poetic in its silence. The media began to capture this growing story with wonder. Documentaries and reports described Maxwell as a visionary bringing the future closer to reality. In homes across the world, people watched and began to imagine a life without the constant need to recharge or replace batteries. The thought of endless power, clean and everlasting, stirred hope in a world struggling with energy shortages and environmental challenges. Even large corporations started to take notice. Some reached out with offers to collaborate, while others began developing their own versions of the technology. Maxwell welcomed this competition, seeing it as a sign that the idea was finally taking root. He believed that real progress was never about one person or one company. It was about humanity moving forward together. Word of the success spread quickly. Engineers from other regions arrived to study the installation and learn how they could replicate it in their own cities. Environmental organizations praised the project as an elegant step toward sustainable living, while local leaders saw it as a foundation for economic growth and stability. Even as interest grew, Maxwell remained patient. He wanted to ensure that the technology was understood, not just adopted. He spent long hours explaining the science behind RF energy, how invisible frequencies could be converted into a gentle but continuous source of power. To him, transparency was as important as the invention itself. Months passed, and the one small experiment turned into a model city, powered entirely by RF batteries. The change was quiet but profound. Businesses began to flourish, as stable electricity opened doors for innovation and trade. Night markets returned. Schools extended their hours, and homes glowed softly under the warm lights powered by air itself. The transformation inspired others. Soon, small towns across neighboring countries began requesting guidance on setting up similar systems. Maxwell's team grew, expanding their research and developing new ways to improve energy efficiency. Each version of the RF battery became more compact, more accessible, and more refined. And though much of the world still viewed this development with cautious optimism, one thing had become clear. A new era had begun, one shaped not by competition for resources, but by the sharing of knowledge and energy. In every light that glowed, in every home that thrived, the promise of infinite power was no longer an idea. It was a living reality. As the success of the model city reached global audiences, curiosity turned into genuine admiration. Journalists and scientists from around the world began to visit, documenting the steady rhythm of a community powered by invisible energy. They were met not with futuristic machinery or glowing reactors, but with calm, steady lights, homes filled with warmth, and people living peacefully in the embrace of a quiet revolution. Soon, universities from Europe and Asia sent delegations to learn more about the underlying principles of the RF battery. Laboratories began replicating the technology on a smaller scale, confirming its remarkable efficiency. What once seemed too extraordinary to believe was now becoming a subject of academic study, discussed in energy conferences and published in journals dedicated to sustainable innovation. Across the ocean, major technology firms observed these developments closely. Rather than dismissing them, they began reaching out to Maxwell's team with offers of cooperation. They wanted to explore how the RF battery could integrate into smartphones, electric vehicles, and even satellites. The idea of devices powered endlessly by ambient energy was too transformative to ignore. Maxwell approached these opportunities with care. He wanted the technology to serve humanity first before it became another commercial race. His dream was to see RF-powered homes in rural villages, self-sustaining schools in remote mountains, and medical equipment running in places far from the reach of traditional grids. Every new partnership was guided by this purpose. Innovation built around compassion. As more installations appeared in different parts of the world, the changes they brought were profound yet peaceful. In the deserts of North Africa, entire settlements were illuminated at night for the first time. In Southeast Asia, fishing communities powered their boats using compact RF modules. And in Europe, smart cities began experimenting with invisible wireless energy networks that could keep public systems running without interruptions. The simplicity of it all astonished engineers. The RF battery required no complex maintenance, no fuel deliveries, and no large-scale infrastructure. It quietly absorbed ambient frequencies and turned them into a continuous stream of power, day and night. To many, it was like harnessing the silent heartbeat of the planet itself. Maxwell continued his work quietly, often avoiding the spotlight. He preferred spending time with his engineers, improving designs and teaching them the deeper philosophy behind his creation. For him, technology was never just about science. It was about faith in the human spirit and the belief that progress should uplift, not divide. As months turned into years, RF technology began finding its place in global discussions about renewable energy. Governments recognized its potential to balance the demands of modern life with environmental care. International collaboration started forming, focusing on building new energy policies that embraced this cleaner, endless source of power. The world had begun to change, not with noise or conflict, but through understanding and shared purpose. In every new city that adopted RF technology, people experienced the same sense of wonder. Lights that never dimmed, devices that never died, and communities that flourished on the promise of boundless energy. Maxwell often said that invention was not about creating miracles, but about discovering what was already waiting to be understood. And as more nations embraced his creation, the truth of those words became ever more clear. The air itself had become humanity's greatest source of power, quiet, pure, and everlasting. As the years passed, the world quietly transformed. Cities once defined by the glow of fossil fuel power plants were now lit by invisible waves of energy flowing freely through the air. From remote villages to towering metropolises, life began to feel lighter, cleaner, and more balanced. The constant worry of energy shortages slowly faded into memory, replaced by a quiet confidence in the endless rhythm of nature's own power. Maxwell never sought fame, but his name became a symbol of hope and progress. Scientists referred to his work as a bridge between technology and harmony, a reminder that true innovation comes not from conquering nature, but from learning to flow with it. His invention had done more than provide power. It had given the world a reason to believe in human creativity again. With time, the RF battery evolved into new forms, powering not only homes and vehicles, but also space missions, research stations, and ocean exploration vessels. The possibilities seemed endless. Humanity had finally found a way to draw energy from the space between things, from the quiet hum of existence itself. One evening, Maxwell stood at the edge of the city that had once been his first experiment. The lights glowed softly, powered by the very air around them. Children played in the streets, unaware that they were living in what had once been called impossible. He smiled, knowing that his work would continue long after him, not as a monument, but as a living part of the world. He believed that the true purpose of invention was not to make life easier, but to make it more meaningful. And as the wind carried the faint hum of energy through the air, Maxwell felt a quiet peace settle over him. The dream of limitless, clean power had become reality, a gift shared freely, shining silently across the earth. The world had entered a new era, one not powered by greed or exhaustion, but by understanding and renewal. And in that endless current of invisible energy, Maxwell's legacy lived on, forever bright, forever alive.